Welcome to NJ Press Pass. Today, I'm here with my newsroom crew, the newsmen covering congressional races in South Jersey. I'm your host, Carly Romalino, watchdog reporter based at the Courier Post. And I'm here with Jim Walsh, also based at the Courier Post, Joe Smith for the Daily Journal, and George Woolston for the Burlington County Times. We're technically based in different newsrooms in South Jersey, but you may be surprised to know we do function as a team for the USA Today network. So for this election, we're everywhere. We were just meeting this morning to shore up our plans of how we're bringing you our coverage. But for this election, Jim is following the 1st Congressional District race. That's a seat that Donald Norcross currently holds. Joe is following the really interesting 2nd District race. That's Jeff Van Drew, a former Democrat who holds the seat right now as a Republican. And it looks like he could be struggling to hold on to that seat, according to some polling data that we will get to a little bit later. And George is on the 3rd Congressional District beat. That seat's held by Andy Kim, who grabbed it in 2018 from MacArthur. And so he has a couple of challengers there who are also after that post. We've been covering the impact of this major vote by mail election since it was really tested over the summer in the primary. And we've already been voting for a couple of weeks here. Camden County and some others have already started opening and tallying those ballots. This is actually a look from Saturday at Camden County's Office of Elections. The first video we just showed was board workers being sworn in. They are opening ballots there. The state said that they could open them now 10 days early. That was Saturday. And they don't have to just open them and put them aside till election day like usual. They're actually allowed to tally them now. And if anybody in the state gets audited by the State Department and it's found out that they looked early, they're in big trouble. I think that's maybe like a 3rd-degree crime, I think. So we've already been voting for a couple weeks, as I said. And Jim, you've actually taken a look already last week at some of what Camden County has coming in. What did you find out?
I did look at Camden County in terms of the 1st District race, because a lot of that district is in Camden County. And it showed a phenomenon, we think, that people are discussing this year, which is called the blue surge, which is Democrats voting early. It's expected to be followed by the red shift, which is Republicans voting on election day or later. And so the early results as of October 14th, there were 62,000 Democrats that voted, 19,000 independents, and 14,000 Republicans. So that would appear to give Donald Norcross a sizable lead, but it's not over till it's over. And both sides say they're going to keep fighting because there is the expectation that the complexion of the vote will change as time goes on.
Yeah, what a weird year for us covering it, for candidates, for voters. But I did look at the Stockton University poll last week, and it seems that follows like what you found, they found that more than half of Democrats have already voted. And just 1 in 5 Republicans have cast early ballots. So I guess Republicans, as you said, are going to follow that, that surge trend and are going to be going later, probably on election day. And from that poll put into perspective what the presidential race looks like right now. It had Biden ahead by 49% statewide, but with a ton of people still left to vote. But that really brought into play like a really interesting north-south state part of the state split. And that same poll said in North Jersey, Biden was ahead by 31 points. But down here in our area from Ocean County down to Cape May, Biden's only ahead by 2 points. So I'm thinking for the race Joe Smith is covering, maybe that will kind of tell us something about, what happens if people are having to choose. Maybe they voted for Van Drew last time, then he switched parties. So, what happens now? What's that district like and how is it historically leaned, Joe?
Historically, the district where the incumbent Jeff Van Drew is running leans Republican, although there are very heavily Democratic areas such as Cumberland County where we are. But it generally, and in the last election, leans significantly Republican, so much so that Van Drew, still running as a Democrat, had to be very careful to make sure he hit points that shared common ground as much as possible, which has been his pattern as a state legislator for a decade plus.
Can you just kind of fill us in on what happened with him and his party? It is one of the reasons why you and I were down in Wildwood when Trump came to visit, and Van Drew was like in the spotlight there. But what happened and when? Like, what happened with his party change? Yeah,
Trump is interesting. A Democratic guy, a very, very well sourced, said as Trump goes, so will Van Drew go. But what happened with Jeff is Jeff has always been, you could call him a moderate, you could call him a Democrat, more from the 70s and 80s milieu. He's a guy who can appeal to both sides. He's not by any means a progressive. On the other hand, he's not really a conservative. He generally shoots down the middle. He owns a gun, but he supports abortion. And what happened was basically national politics came in and forced him to follow certain votes that he wasn't comfortable with. He did that up until the point it got to the impeachment that went on in January, and that was the straw. He wouldn't do it. And he generally had been given a break in New Jersey politics, state politics, to vote his conscience, but not at the national level. And basically he was told, we're not backing you. And this came from the 7-8 chairs with something to say about it. And so he switched.
So who's challenging him? I know that you have a desk full of political mailers because you live in that district.
Yeah.
Who's challenging him? There are a couple of opponents there, but it seems like one is really far ahead. Amy Kennedy. So what are they all about? And I mean, if you're watching TV at all in this area, I feel like it's just Amy Kennedy blasted everywhere. Ads and ads and ads.
Sure. Well, my personal flyer count, and I'd like to collect them just to see who's pushing really hard. This is a district Lo Biondo had until Jeff Van Drew took it. I've got 7 mailers from Amy Kennedy. There's one example, which is kind of a combo. What's her position and why you should not like Van Drew. And only 3 from Van Drew, 2 of which are please vote by mail and do it sooner rather than later. And one that basically, one flyer from Van Drew, which basically talks about his positions. Amy Kennedy is a newcomer to running for office. She Atlantic County native, comes from a political family. Her father was a local elected official and then a freeholder. Married Patrick Kennedy, son of the late Senator Ted Kennedy. Both of them work in a mental health advocacy foundation that he founded. That's their employment, although she likes to talk about being a teacher, which she was at one point in Northfield. Jeff, on the other hand, he's actually originates in North Jersey. Oh, he's been down here, probably early 80s. He's a dentist, retired now. He started out, Jeff has done the traditional route, which he used to be, probably still is mostly common, fire commissioner, local township committeeman, freeholder, then jumped into the legislature. And his appeal has always been, he'll talk to you. He doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you have a problem, talk to me if I can help it. And he's always gotten pretty good feedback from both sides about what his approach has been. And at one point, he's basically the reason why the eastern end of South Jersey swung completely Democrat in the state legislative, which reversed in the last election. Again, probably Trump's influence, which is why people are looking so closely at what Trump's appeal is in the area when they're looking at him as well.
So to skip ahead a little bit or back or something, just to skip around, Monmouth University, I'm into another poll here, in early October had Vandrew losing this race. They polled 600 people, 49% favored Amy Kennedy. Vandrew wasn't too far behind. He was at like 45. Is that a little bit of a surprise? I mean, does it seem like Amy has a lot more money just by the amount of TV spots I've seen, the number of mailers on your desk? Are you getting a sense, without having looked at the numbers yet that are probably coming toward the end of the week, you think that she's brought in more cash?
If she's ahead, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be surprised if the numbers are what the University, Stockton and Monmouth are talking about. Traditionally, the campaigns have a little better feel on it. For instance,
Right.
in the last race, they had Jeff way ahead, and it was a lot tighter. And Vandrew's campaign would tell you that. Yeah, she definitely has access to a ton of money, in part because of who she is. She's a progressive. She's married into a prominent progressive Democratic family, and they want Vandrew gone as part of this campaign. They want him gone badly, and there's a lot of animosity because he switched, at least in the progressive end. But that was, to be honest, in the primary while he was still a Democrat running as a primary. The level of opposition from the progressive wing of the South Jersey Democratic Party was intense. At that point, it didn't matter because he had everybody's backing anyway. But it's that times 10 now.
So we were talking about money a little bit. Money is important in any race. Sometimes it's an indicator of who has support. But George, you've been tracking dollar signs in the 3rd district. That's, as I said earlier, is Andy Kim's seat. He won that 2 years ago. Who's challenging him, and what is campaign fundraising looking like?
So Andy Kim's facing a challenge from David Richter, a Republican endorsed by Trump. He's a former CEO of Hill International, a construction firm. But so far, if you look at the fundraising money, Andy Kim is outraising David Richter by a large margin. As of October 14th, Andy Kim's raised $6.7 million. Of that, he spent $5.9 million. David Richter, on the other hand, has raised $1.4 million, and about half of that is a loan from himself. He's also spent most of his money at $1.3 million. Richter said that a big challenge to him raising money this election has been the COVID-19 pandemic. With lockdowns essentially ending any kind of large fundraising gathering he could have. And Andy Kim, being the incumbent, obviously has a lot of infrastructure in place.
Yeah, I'm sure. I've brought up a couple of polls. We've talked about money now. But personally, I don't feel comfortable this year, like even having a little bit of a prediction, because I just feel like this is such a wild year. And we kind of learned last year, nationally, or 4 years ago, nationally, don't rely on polls and stuff because, there's discouraging, people might think you're sitting pretty, not vote. But really just COVID has shaken everything up. And for newsroom nerds like us, it's made this election season really, really interesting. And really bringing in this whole new topic that hits, COVID hits economy. It hits like the presidential candidates spoke about, American families. It hits you at home. It hits your livelihood. And it's been something that the 3rd district candidates have been really sparring over, right, George?
Yeah, so Andy Kim has attacked his opponent, David Richter, for an opinion Richter had over the summer, where he was calling for New Jersey to reopen completely. In a recent debate, hosted by the New Jersey Globe news outlet. Richter somewhat backtracked, saying we need to do everything we can to mitigate the COVID-19 impact. Andy Kim still holds his feet to the fire, pointing to photos of David Richter out and about without masks on social media. While Andy Kim he's a member of the coronavirus response team in Congress, and he's been actively touring small businesses and frontline workers to essentially what he claims helps him, get money to New Jersey residents faster.
So for the other races, Jim and Joe, has COVID been a campaign point there? Have they been, just trying to not deal with it? Has been really prominent in mailers or other policies?
Well, speaking for the first district, I had asked the two campaigns what were the big issues. They all have issues that they're announcing as their key interests. But I said when they were on the street, what were the issues that voters were raising? And how they answered, I think, was very reflective. The Democrats said that the reaction on the street was almost entirely about the coronavirus and the subsequent problems that come out of it: joblessness, healthcare issues, health insurance, and family daycare issues, particularly the expense. And so they said they were focusing on that. The Republicans didn't mention coronavirus as an issue, but said they were hearing mostly from their voters about what they described the Norcross family. Donald Norcross's brother is George Norcross, the power broker for the Democrats in South Jersey, and the Republicans paint that as a criminal cartel. And they said that's what their voters are concerned about. They're really two very different approaches to the race.
Joe, in the southern part of the state, what's Jeff Van Drew and Amy Kennedy going back and forth COVID wise down there?
Well, Van Drew has torn into Governor Murphy for his policies on forcing businesses to close when, in Van Drew's opinion, especially in this area, which is very different from North Jersey or even Central Jersey, things are so spread out where the incident rates have been relatively low. He's bitter about it. I mean, he's as an incumbent, he hears every day, my business is going down the drain. And it was actually something that came up, and he's highly critical of Murphy. And I think he puts most of the blame on him is just that the governor simply overreacted in both who he's targeting for lockdowns and how intense it is. For instance, in the debate, the gym that's up more in the gymnasium that's more up in Jim's territory. Yeah.
He Tiller's gym in Belmar. Yeah.
Yeah, he ended. I mean, they had to drag it out of him, but he said, yeah, that you have to obey the law. But his, it was like, is this necessary? No. Kennedy's part, she recognized it's an important thing, but no criticism of the governor. She'd go as far as saying things are so very unclear, which I interpreted as she's on the federal end of it than it was targeting her own party's governor.
So did those points come up in the virtual debate that the two candidates held?
Yeah, the one at October 8th, at Stockton, which was informative. More of like a long two candidate interview rather than, but it points to going at each other. I guess basically the biggest clashes where it got personal was like who's a regular fella and who's not, and you get into personal backgrounds and how you present yourself to the public.
I have 3 questions about that for you. Did a fly land on anyone? Did anyone say, come on, man? And did you keep an interruptions count?
The flies couldn't get past security. It was pretty almost without unscripted interruption. Very, very limited. Actually, the only thing that really jumped out at me is Amy Kennedy couldn't quit smiling every time Van Drew said something, and it got to be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what her experience is being up in front of anything other than a classroom, but it was like, okay, stop smiling. Where Jeff is, he's been doing it for 30 plus years. He was more of your classic, close your mouth, listen, and then wait for your chance to come back, take notes, sort of a deal.
Now I'm smiling and questioning if I should be doing that.
Well, you're not running for office, but it's
no, I'm not.
Yeah, at a point, it can be interpreted as maybe as passive aggressiveness, and but yeah, it just could be her nature. That's the first time I've ever seen her in an extended debate. So it just. Yeah.
What was the debate setup? So it was virtual. Obviously, you weren't there,
Right.
but they were just like on the stage. Like, just kind of describe what that looked like. And I want to know from George too. Andy Kim and David Richter had one too. Like how they set them up, because campaigning is so hard. Like they can't go door knocking now and stuff. So fill us in on that.
Yeah, one of the funny things, if you go out to an event, even when you're with people you've known for years, put a mask on them, and it's like, is that you?
Right. You have to look people in the eye now. That's all you have.
Yeah, it's like you hesitate. And but for the debate, they were without masks. They were on a stage. You could probably fit a good-sized pool table between them, their stands, and I don't think the moderators had it. It was hard to tell what their spacing was, but you could hear people. You didn't have to worry about the muffle effect.
Right. What did you see, George? And I know that you also did some reporting on how candidates in our area in South Jersey took non-traditional means to get the message out. But what did the debate between Kim and Richter look like?
So they both they participated in back-to-back, I guess, debate-like events is the best way to describe them. The first one was a true debate hosted by the New Jersey Globe News website. And the second one was hosted by WHYY and the League of Women Voters. Both were held over online meeting software like Zoom. The first event was kind of, like I said, more of a traditional debate where there was questions were posed and they kind of took quick jabs at each other here and there. The second one was more of a interview with the candidates where they kind of laid out where they feel or where they sit on questions that were submitted by voters.
Neat. So,
Carly, you mentioned about traditional campaigning. It just hadn't occurred to me that you said that, but I haven't had one candidate, including local, knock on my door, and we're all working basically from home because of COVID. The only people who come to my door are, I think they're working for Atlantic City Electric, asking about green energy.
we have City, yeah. And my Amazon guy, he's here like every 2 days or so.
Oh God, yeah. Amazon is almost making a headquarters of the street. Yeah, it's amazing.
If my Amazon driver was on the ballot, he would certainly get my vote for the amount of times that he's been here.
Yeah.
So because this is non-traditional for everyone, reporters included, we're all experienced and have covered elections for so long. I asked last week, Carol Camino and Jared Safran, what's going to be different and was really strange. But for the three of you, is there anything that you like about how this is going? As far as, covering the candidates and election day, I mean, do you like that there's Zoom debates so you don't have to actually go out someplace till midnight and sit there and report? Is there any highlights?
I got to confess, I like that a lot. Yeah.
That's why I brought it up. I thought you might.
Yeah. I also like not having someone knock on my door and ask me for my vote, but that's just me.
Is your phone ringing instead? We don't have a home phone, so we haven't had it.
I think they tend to be Republican, but besides surveys, which I always say I'm a reporter, I can't talk to you. I say, you
Right.
sure? Yeah, I'm sure. But I had one last night, a Republican make sure you vote. If you're voting by mail, this is what you do. Make sure you go do this now, and like that. But that's it. And
yeah,
it's been oddly low key, given the stakes.
Right. Jim, is there anything that you hope sticks for the next presidential year?
I will be honest and step out of my reporting role and say, as a voter, it was really convenient to be able to go to a drop box and drop off my ballot. It seems also that the counties, you probably know this better than I, have invested in a lot of equipment to do all this. And I think there might be a push in the future to continue to have elections this way. Other states do it. And I'm not aware of any voters who are protesting or objecting that they get a chance to vote early. As a reporter, it makes me think, well, what happens if 2 days before the election, there may no longer be an October surprise because people will vote.
Yeah.
So as a voter, though, I found it really convenient and allows me in the future just to go to the polls as a reporter and talk to people.
It's actually
that happens.
For me as a voter, my voting station is a 5-minute walk. I go in and I'm out in 15 minutes. I prefer that than because without bringing up conspiracies or malfeasance.
Right.
It's simpler. I like the security features. And what I don't like about mail-in is that it is different than absentee. Absentee, you call and they send. So there's that check. Like, it's not like you're getting a credit card in the mail, and
Right.
And I think that there's a reason why the security is so tight at polling stations. We should have the same level in mail-ins because it's a wacky world and people do stupid stuff.
I am going to debate that with you very briefly. I, like Jim, like the convenience of having the ballot available for me to drop off when I feel comfortable. So I think I'm actually going to kind of split the difference and take my ballot either the day before to a box or the day of to my polling location, like last minute, to kind of like get that polling location experience, because you can drop your ballot off there now. But I actually think that there is the way, the state website, and I can link to that, where you can, track from the time it's in the drop box, you can track that it's been delivered and then counted. I think that's really neat. Again, coming back to my online purchases, I like to see where my stuff is. So I'm okay with it, but I'm still wanting to get the polling location experience, and I think it's mostly curiosity, just drawing me there, and a little bit of tradition.
Well, from the reporter, I've got things to do standpoint.
Right.
When it's in polling, one of the great things I liked since I've been in South Jersey, which especially where I am, which was really slow to move away from paper ballots, is that you could get the results so darn quickly. And now you're kind of like, you've gone back 30 years where you're waiting for the paper ballots to get delivered.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And I'm really impatient, so I'm just going to be like biting my nails off for like 2 weeks. So they all have to be certified by November 20th. So let's hope that they do a really good job with, being able to do it 10 days earlier, that they do a really good job of, being fast and efficient. So, George, any highlights from this you want to carry over for the next election year as a reporter?
I think everybody touched on, the convenience of it. And as well as, I guess the wait we're going to have after the election to find out who's won in some of the closer races.
Yeah. Besides the convenience, there's not much more that I really want to hold on to. I love election day. I love getting out there. I love having, maybe somebody this is so weird, but reporters have to stay 100 feet from polling locations. So when someone's like, you're 99 3/4 of a foot, like yelling at you out there. And sometimes it's raining, and walking up to people and asking them and getting constant rejections when you're like, we do our own exit polling. Like, I'm not going to tell you how I voted. So, yeah. What were you going to say, Jim?
I was going to say again on the personal level, I don't know how widespread this will be, but I have sometimes gone into races or the polling booth and just looked at various candidates for school board or for the fire commission and felt like I could probably know more about them and not just vote on them based on whose name is going to be easiest to spell during a story. And this year, my wife and I sat down and Googled fire commissioner candidates and like actually thought, well, what's their background? We looked at all the school board people in real time. And to be honest, I didn't always do that when I was voting at the polls. There'd be races where you would just go, gee, I didn't give this a ton of thought.
Right.
You know, hopefully there'll be pluses and minuses. And I think, I don't know if you had said this before, if you said during our phone conversation this morning, but at least Camden County and I suspect a few others have already started counting the ballots. They're not going to say who got how many votes, but they are already in the process, so that we'll have a story later this week saying when they expect to have final results. And I believe it could be fairly close to election night for local races, not for the president maybe,
Right.
but for mayors and freeholders, they possibly will know the night of the election.
I certainly hope so. Like I said, very impatient, and I will be updating freeholder results for the foreseeable future, starting the time the polls close. When returns start to come in, I'll be monitoring them for our papers for county. So that's Camden, Gloucester, Cumberland, and Burlington. But yeah, any final thoughts? Anything you guys think our voters, and if they haven't voted already, should just be paying attention to, Googling themselves, turning to our websites for? Any final thoughts there? All right, very good. So many people have already voted that it's really hard to know what people still need because they've made the decisions already. So that is our show today. As always, we're glad to share our press passes with you. These might be our reporting sources, but on NJ Press Pass, it's always your questions that we're asking. So make sure to stay curious, South Jersey.